This edition of Freedomlink Radio on the 22nd of March, 2012. I'm Joe Joseph along with Tim Watts. And I want to get right into this. Our guest tonight is Jonathan Cahn. He's the author of the national bestseller, The Harbinger, The Ancient Mystery Behind America's Future. Jonathan leads the Jerusalem Center Beth Israel in Wayne, New Jersey, and is president of Hope of the World and International Outreach. His teachings and messages are heard around the world and are known for revealing the deep mysteries of biblical truth. And I'd like to welcome you to the show, Jonathan.
Great to be here, Joe.
Fantastic.
For a while.
Oh yeah, this is fantastic, and I'm so glad that that we're able to get the content out to my listeners. And let's get right into it. You know, your book is titled The Harbinger. So what is the mystery of the Harbinger?
Well, a harbinger means a foreshadow. Something is to come, and in this case, a warning. And that is the harbinger. The subtitle is The Ancient Mystery That Holds the Secret of America's Future. And it is a mystery that goes back 2,500 years, that is behind everything from 9/11 to the war on terror, to the collapse of the economy, the crash of the stock market, to the Great Recession, to what's happening now. It's so specific that it even foretells the actions of American leaders, the words of American leaders, and even the actual dates of the crash of Wall Street, the times of it. And it begins with 9 harbingers, or 9 prophetic signs. And the thing is that in the last days of ancient Israel, before it was destroyed in judgment, there were 9 harbingers that appeared in the land. And the thing is, the eerie thing is that those same 9 harbingers are now reappearing on American soil. And the harbingers are specific, they're not general, they're exact, they're precise. Some take the form of objects, some take the form of events or reenactments, some even the form of ceremonies, some involve the highest leaders of the land. It affects everything, everyone listening now. It affects not only their future, but their bank account, everything, and it's an ancient mystery, and it's a warning. And the question is, could God be sending a warning to America? Is America in danger of destruction?
That's amazing, you know. And folks, I mean, you can all tell that just take a look at life as it was 10, 15 years ago, how we used to live. It certainly wasn't as much of a chaotic time as it is today. And we also see, based on some of the actions of our leaders, that things have really been ratcheting up, you know, with the Patriot Act and the Military Commissions Act, the NDAA, this latest executive order, the NDRP. We're seeing this happen at a very, very accelerated pace. So, Jonathan, what are these 9 harbingers?
Okay, well, the setup or the key is to understand what happened 2,500 years ago, ancient Israel, in the Bible. Now, Israel was a nation that had known God, was established on the principles of God, His Word, but they turned away, and they were the leaders that turned away and the people as well. But they turned away from God, and they rejected His ways, got involved in immorality, sexual immorality, everything you can imagine, rejected His word, offered up their children as sacrifices. And so God sent prophets to them and warned them. And finally, He allowed something to happen. And this is the first harbinger. This is the breach. And that is that He allowed the hedge of protection, now the national hedge of protection, the national security, He allowed it to be breached for a time, a temporary breach where an attack was allowed on the land, and it was a strike. It was a temporary strike. It was limited. It was contained, and then it was over. But it was a wake-up call. He was trying to wake up the nation because nothing else would get through to them. And it was a warning that the nation would not be destroyed. And so this happens, and then there comes this grace period, this period of years afterwards, which really the nation's fate hangs in the balance. They either come back to God or they depart completely. So the first harbinger is the breach. And what they do, instead of coming back to God, what they do, and turning their course around, what they do is they make a vow of defiance. And the vow is recorded in Isaiah. And what they said is, They say the bricks have fallen, meaning in this attack, but we will rebuild with hewn stone. The sycamores have been cut down in this attack, but we will plant cedars in their place. And what they're saying is, God, we're not coming back. We're not turning our course. We're going to keep on going against you, and we're going to do a little more so. We're going to come back stronger against you. And the symbol is, instead of, the bricks may have fallen, but we're going to build with these big stones now, so we're going to come back stronger. The sycamore is a weak tree. Well, we're going to plant another tree in the place. It's the symbol. We're coming back stronger. So this is the vow of defiance, and it's ominous because it's going to set the stage for the destruction of the nation. And after they do this, the other harbingers of judgment or warning appear in the land. So now what does that have to do with America? America was also founded on God's word. It was founded on the principles of God. It was founded to be a light to the nations. And it was blessed. As much as it did this, it was blessed. But what happened is, in the same way as ancient Israel, now America has been turning away from the ways of God, and it's obvious. You just mentioned it before. It's obvious. It's happening rapidly. It's becoming a different nation, just like Israel, just like ancient Israel. And so here, the first harbinger is the warning of the breach. And so what happens is that the national hedge of protection, we'd always had this hedge of protection, always protected America. All of a sudden, it is removed temporarily, but it's removed, and an enemy is allowed to make a strike in the land. And that happens on September 11th, 2001. And it is a shaking, it is a wake-up call, and it is then over, and then comes this period where according to the principle, the nation's hanging in the balance. Which way is it going to go? Is it going to turn back to God, or is it going to keep on going the other way? Well, what happened is that America has been following the same course as ancient Israel, and eerily so. I mean, exactly so. And so now all the harbingers that appeared in ancient Israel's last days are now reappearing now in America. And it's amazing. It's precise. It involves everybody and everything. I know maybe in the next segment we can touch on some of them, but it's eerie and it's real.
Oh, it most certainly is. Now, Tim, we're of the same mindset, and one of the things that Tim and I were discussing was the belief that, is it a foreign enemy that attacks? Does it matter? Because what we believe, and based on the evidence that we've done a lot of research into 9/11, and it's almost like it was some sort of a cult ritual, almost like God removes his protective hand from America, and it's allowed to happen. But does it matter where the attack comes from, or just that the attack happened?
Yeah, well, yeah. The fact that it could even happen is a sign, and this is a key in the Bible. This is a pattern. If that, for the attack even to happen, is a key that something has been removed. It's been allowed to happen. I mean, God is God is for mercy, and He's calling a nation back. But it's happened because we've been so extreme that it takes something like this to wake us up, if we will wake up.
It is fascinating, isn't it, Tim?
Oh, the entire, subject is fascinating, but, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. As Joe said, him and I have been involved in 9/11 research since the day that first tower fell. So, there's a lot of stuff that we need to reconcile with, some of what you're saying, because, I myself and a lot of others are of the opinion, 9/11 was an inside job, and that this was a self-inflicted wound. What would you say about that?
Yeah, here's what I would say about that. Regardless of what one sees in that, there's something bigger and deeper, because that goes back. We're talking about something that's 2,500 years old, and it's the biggest ultimate picture. So, however it happens, the fact is it was allowed to happen. And
absolutely,
that's the key.
that's tremendous, folks. When we come back, we'll have more with Jonathan Cahn as we get into more of the harbingers that have taken place since 2001. So don't go away. Stay tuned. Welcome back, folks. Our special guest tonight is Jonathan Cahn, author of The Harbinger. And Jonathan, before the break, we were talking about the 9 harbingers, and you set up the first harbinger. Mm-hmm. Can you get into some of the next harbingers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and it goes just like clockwork. It's like this ancient mystery, and it's all there in this vow, in this 2,500-year-old scripture, and it's happening now. Kind of sounds like a movie, but it's real. And in Isaiah, you go right down. They make this vow after the attack, and they say the bricks have fallen, but we will rebuild with hewn stone. That's the first thing they say. So the harbinger here now, and in the book, and we can just barely touch on them and just touch on a few of them from the book, but the fifth harbinger is called the stone of judgment. And that is that the people of ancient Israel, they clear away the bricks where the destruction happened, and they go to the mountains. And the reason why they go to the mountains is that the word in the Hebrew is the word gazit, and that means a mountain rock, a rock that's quarried, cut out of mountain stone. It's a big, rectangular, massive block of stone, and they bring it back to the ground of destruction. They lay it down there, and they begin the rebuilding, and this becomes the symbol of the rebuilding of the nation. And they vow over this rock that we're going to come back stronger and better than ever. But we're not going to change our course at all. We're going to keep on going away from God, but we're going to come back stronger. So this is this is the sign of the stone of judgment. What could this have to do with America? After 9/11, in a mountain upstate New York, they go to the mountain, they cut out this massive rectangular block of stone. It is a biblical gazit stone. They bring the stone to New York City. According to this harbinger, it has to go to the ground of destruction. They bring it to ground zero. They lower it on the pavement just where the bricks had fallen, and then they have a ceremony around the stone. They have the leaders of New York, New Jersey, the governors. They have this ceremony. They pronounce vows of defiance over the stone. This is the symbol that we're coming back stronger, basically without God. They vow over. They have no idea they're reenacting this ancient drama of judgment. This is ominous stuff. Then you go right down the line. It's like a decoder. Go right down with Isaiah. It says, the next verse is, the sycamores have fallen or been struck down. Well, in that attack that happened in ancient Israel, the warning before its destruction, the enemy not only attacked the cities, they attacked the land, and they ended up cutting down the sycamores of the land. And the striking down of a tree, or the uprooting of a tree, is a biblical sign, a warning of judgment. And God was saying to them, listen, if you don't turn back, you're going to be uprooted as a nation. So what happens? For this to happen, this is the sixth harbinger, the sign of the sycamore. What has to happen is that somehow in America, this sign has to appear, has to be linked to 9/11. Well, the chances are real unlikely, because New York is not a place you go looking for trees, and the terrorists aren't interested, or 9/11 isn't interested in any of this. So what happens? In the last moments of 9/11, as the tower's coming down, the last one, it creates a shockwave, and a beam goes forth from the tower, and it strikes an object that just happens to be standing there, and that object is a tree, and that tree is the sycamore. The sycamore is struck down. The biblical sign of national judgment is struck down at the corner of Ground Zero. The people of New York make it into a symbol. They call it the sycamore of Ground Zero. They put it on display, and they have no idea what they're doing. And this could not have been, this is not any human hand. This is just this thing that happened in the sky, and it all falls into place. And the next thing, it goes down, it says, in the ancient vow, it says, the sycamores have fallen, but we will plant cedars in their place. Another sign of defiance, saying, hey, the weak tree came down, but we're going to go right to where that stood, and we're going to plant another tree, and this one's going to be a stronger one, and this is an act of defiance to God. And so what could this have to do with America? This is the seventh harbinger, is a sign. In Hebrew, it's called the Erez tree. They didn't say cedar, that's our translation. They said the Erez tree. And so this is the seventh harbinger. It has to somehow, the one tree has to be replaced by this other exact sign, biblical judgment. So what happens? In 2 years after 9/11, a tree appears in the sky at the corner of Ground Zero. It's being lowered by this massive crane. It's going down, and they're putting it into this precise spot of earth, of soil, and that spot is where the sycamore had stood, the sycamore of Ground Zero. They put it in the place of this, and what kind of tree is it? In the Hebrew, the word is erez, and erez can mean a cedar, but it also means it really literally means a pine or conifer tree. Literally, the best definition is it's called panacea tree. So what happens? What is that tree that comes down? It is the panacea tree, a conifer tree. It's the biblical Erez tree, the tree of judgment in Isaiah 9:10. They replace it without realizing what they're doing. They have a ceremony around the tree. They call it the tree of hope, and they have no idea. They're reenacting the exact drama of which is the signs of a nation's judgment. And it gets more eerie because the next harbinger, or the eighth harbinger, is the vow itself, the proclaiming, the utterance of the vow. And this is that the leaders of ancient Israel, they had to have uttered and spoken this vow. It had to be the leaders, as you talked about earlier. It has to be the leaders because the leaders are directing the course of the nation. And so here they are doing that. It had to be proclaimed from the capital city, had to be done by a leader of the land. So how could this manifest in America? The eighth harbinger is the uttering of the vow. Well, it would have to be an American leader, will have to speak this ancient vow, which is pronouncing judgment on the nation, and it would have to do it as a public statement from the capital city. Well, 3 years after 9/11, to the day, on September 11, 2004, an American leader gets up in Washington, D.C. His name is John Edwards, and he's a senator, and he's running for vice president. He gets up, and he appears before a caucus, and then what he says, he begins a speech about 9/11, and what he says is, there's this word we have, and the word that goes forth, he begins out of his mouth to proclaim the ancient vow. He's pronouncing judgment on the nation without realizing what he's doing. He says, the bricks have fallen, but we will rebuild with hewn stone, the sycamore. He says the whole ancient vow. He's identifying America as a nation in danger of destruction. He doesn't know what he's doing. He has no idea what it even means. He thinks it's an inspiring verse. He builds his entire speech around. He goes on to talk about we're going to put up the stone, we're going to put up the cedar, the sycamore. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't even know what's happening. And so this is an ominous sign of national judgment. You go back a few years and you find another one that's even more eerie or more intense. And the ninth harbinger is the prophecy. And what that is, it's the vow spoken by a leader, but it has to be, in ancient Israel, they had to have spoken it before they did it. They say, we're going to do this. It's setting the course of the nation towards judgment. So it had to be done soon after the attack. And so what happens is right after the attack, on September 12th, the day after, the government gathers on Capitol Hill. You got the Senate, you got the House, and America's going to give its response to this. And so the one appointed to give the response is the head of the Senate Majority Leader, Tom Daschle, and he gets up. He's representing the Senate. Senate's representing the nation. He gets up on the Senate floor, and then he says that he pronounces the nation's response. At the end of his speech, at the very end, the finale, he says, there is a word from Isaiah that I think speaks to all of us at times like this. He doesn't know what he's doing, and all of a sudden out of his mouth comes the ancient vow. He's proclaiming judgment on the nation. He says the bricks have fallen. He speaks about the tree. He's the whole thing, word for word. He does it from the floor of the Senate, and this is the ninth harbinger.
Folks, if you're interested in finding out more about Jonathan Cahn or his book, you can go to the website, theharbingerwebsite.com or theharbingerwebsite.org, or you can go visit hopeoftheworld.com or hopeoftheworld.org. Again, our guest tonight, Jonathan Cahn. And you want to add something about that, Jonathan?
Oh, well, thanks for saying that. Yeah, and if they want to get to get the book, The Harbinger, it's everywhere, from Amazon, Barnes and Noble, even Walmart, everywhere. If the people want the teachings behind it, the full revelation on the pictures of the harbingers on DVDs, we have a whole bunch of stuff. That's on that website, theharbingerwebsite.com. And there's also, they put out a documentary, not me, but they put out a documentary with me in it, but it's called the Isaiah 9:10 Judgment. And we just were told it became #1 also on Faith Video, and that's on Amazon.com, the Isaiah 9:10 Judgment. So those are the things that are out there.
Fantastic. Now, your book says that the ancient mystery is not only behind 9/11, but everything that's happened in America since then and that day. So can you tell me about the second shaking?
Yeah, the principle is, and this is from the ancient times, that if the nation does not wake up, turn back to God with the first shaking or calamity, there's going to come a second. The first is, it attacks the land. The second attacks the very power of the nation, and that is so what happens is America's financial, economic power all of a sudden collapses. The Great Recession, the greatest collapse since the Depression, happens years after 9/11, but it's all linked together. In fact, we left on Capitol Hill with that the harbinger of the prophecy, where you have the Senate Majority Leader actually pronouncing this ancient, it's like a curse, judgment on America. And what happens is, years later, the American government, the Treasury, is going to make a decision. They have come to Wall Street. They make an emergency visit. They announce something. They say, we're going to let these things fall, and the entire economy is going to collapse because of what they do, what they announce that day. The day that they made that fateful decision, or they announced it at Wall Street, that day was the same exact day, the anniversary of when the ancient vow was proclaimed on Capitol Hill the day after 9/11. So here's the very same anniversary of the defiant vow comes the second crashing, the collapse. And there is a scripture, there's a principle, there's a mystery in the Bible where God says that on the day of these calamities, I will uncover the foundation, the nation's foundation. What's the foundation of America's superpower, financial superpower? It begins in Wall Street. In the late 1700s, there's a secret meeting in New York, and then that is followed by the signing of a covenant. The covenant is called the Buttonwood Agreement, and from the Buttonwood Agreement comes an association called the Buttonwood Association, which the name is later changed to the New York Stock Exchange. The original name for Wall Street is Buttonwood. So this is the rise of America, the foundation, the rise to superpower begins with this word Buttonwood. So here's a mystery. What is Buttonwood? Well, Buttonwood was a tree, and it was the tree under which they signed the covenant that began Wall Street. And what is that tree? Buttonwood is the sycamore. It's the sycamore tree. So here is the symbol of America's rise to superpower. That same symbol reappears on 9/11 and the sign of the sycamore, the sixth harbinger we spoke about, but now it's struck down. So here, if the living sycamore is the sign of the rise of America's superpower, what does the striking down of that mean? And they make a statue of this struck down sycamore tree, and they put it not on near Ground Zero where it happened. They put it on Wall Street. At the end of Wall Street is the sign of Wall Street now uprooted. So here is a biblical sign speaking of the future of America's superpower. And there's another mystery that is in the Bible that says that in order for a truth or a matter of judgment to be established, you need 2 or 3 witnesses to testify to the same thing. Well, that also can happen with a nation. And we just talked about, in the last segment, we talked about 2 witnesses. There was one on Capitol Hill, and he pronounces this ancient vow that is about judgment. Then 3 years later, you got John Edwards. He pronounced that, and again, none of these guys know what they're doing. Interesting people noticed that both people who said that fell after that. They fell from grace. But then, could there be a third witness? And because it says 2 or 3 witnesses, and the answer is yes. The answer is it's the President of the United States, Barack Obama. Soon after his presidency, he goes to Capitol Hill, and he's now the nation's economy is crashing, and he goes there and say, "Hey, don't worry, everything's gonna be fine." And he says though the everything's falling apart, he says I want every American to know this, and then he declares from Capitol Hill the central declaration of the ancient vow: we will rebuild, and we're going to come back stronger than ever. And it goes all over the world, all over the news: we will rebuild. So here, this is sealing this. It's all linked together from 9/11 to the economic collapse. And there is this other thing, and this is kind of mind-boggling. And all these mysteries, we're talking, again, like thousands of years old, but they're happening now, and they're behind everything. And this one is called the mystery of the Shemitah in Hebrew. And what that is that Every 7 years, the nation of Israel had a rest. It was a Sabbath year. They had a rest, do no work, the economy stopped. And on the last day of that Sabbath year, all the credit, all the debt was wiped out of the nation. And it was to be a good thing. But the thing is, it all happened on one day. And that day in Hebrew on the biblical calendar is called Elul 29, the 29th day of the month of Elul. But the thing is, when the nation turned away from God, they drove God out of their life. They drove him out of their government, out of everything. This Shemitah, this Sabbath thing, comes back at them as a sign of judgment. So what does it have to do with America? Well, the mystery is seven. It happened in a 7-year cycle, every 7 years. So here's the thing. As a sign of judgment on a nation that's driven God out of its life, and it directly touches the financial realm of the nation, what happens? When did the second shaking come? It came how many years after 9/11? 7 years. When? In September of 2008. That's 7 years to the month. In the second week of September 2008, that's 7 years to the week. In fact, when America was commemorating 9/11 on Wall Street, the second shaking of America was beginning. And it gets even more exact and eerie, because what was the greatest day of the economic collapse? It happened at the end of September. The greatest crash in American history happens. And, in fact, when they try to ring the opening bell that morning, it refuses to ring. They took it as an omen. So it crashes. So when did the greatest crash in America ever happen? When did it happen? It happened on the biblical day ordained to wipe out a nation's financial account. On the 29th day of Elul, the nation's accounts are wiped out. Credit's wiped out. Debt's wiped out. The Great Recession, everything we've experienced since then, all this form of wipeout. And when you go back 7 years, because it's a 7-year mystery, go back 7 years from there, and you find you're in September 2001, you have 9/11, but you have something else. You have the other greatest crash in American history. It happened September 17th, 2001, greatest crash up to that point. And so when did that one take place? Well, the mind-boggling, the other greatest crash took place on the Hebrew calendar, on the biblical calendar, on the day appointed, the 29th day of Elul, appointed to wipe a nation's financial account that has driven God out of its life. So you got the two greatest crashes in Wall Street history, American history. They happen both on the exact biblical day appointed, and they happen exactly 7 years apart, 7-year mystery, to the day, to the hour. I mean, there's so much here. You can barely, in fact, you can even, there's a mystery of sevens. Each time, in each crash, how much was wiped out? 7%. In 2008, how many points? It was 777. And we can't go through it now. But you can, even from that, that 777 is going to lead you back to the very hour of the other crash and to the very hour of the attack on 9/11. I mean, it's amazing. It's mind-boggling, but it's true. And anybody can look it up. It happened.
So basically, if we go by the Shemitah, then if America doesn't see things for what it is and come into a mindset of repentance, then the next Shemitah would be 2015, correct?
Well, that's a great question, because a lot of people, when I say that, always they'll say that. Actually, it would begin in 2014, and it would culminate 2015. It lasts 1 year. It would be. Now, I haven't gotten it yet to be dogmatic that it has to happen in that way, but the fact is the next one is, as you said, it's 2014 to 2015.
So would it be like September 2014? Would that be the start?
You got it exactly. It's September to September. That's the biblical year. Absolutely.
This is amazing information. And folks, it's funny because when it comes to the economy, we see that we're on really shaky territory. I mean, we had this collapse, and now we're the foundation of our economic the base is just cracked. And
yes.
it's not going to be repaired anytime soon. When we come back, last segment of hour number one.
Website at www.oriontalkradio.com. Check out the archives there, the chat room, the Orion gear, everything we've got available on the website at oriontalkradio.com. It's Freedomlink Radio with Joe Joseph and Tim Watson. Tonight, our very special guest, Rabbi Jonathan Cahn, author of the Harbinger warnings to Israel and the U.S., and he's telling us how these have all tied in to the United States lately since 9/11. And Jonathan, you've got one more mystery you wanted to share with us.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many, there's so many mysteries, and in the Harbinger. But this is one I want to get because it's going to bring it home to what we want to get to, and that is that there is a principle, the biblical principle, that when judgment comes or calamity comes, warning comes to a nation, the calamity or destruction returns to the place where the nation was consecrated to God or dedicated to God. And that happened with Israel. That was the Temple Mount. The King Solomon, he dedicated the temple. They prayed for the future of the nation. And yet then when finally judgment came, it came back to that same ground of where everything had been dedicated when the temple was destroyed. And that was a sign that, hey, the covenant's broken, and God is saying, return, nation, return to where you have fallen from. And so what could this have to do with America? Well, there is a day in America's history that matches up with this dedication. And it was the very first day of America as we know it, as a fully formed nation. It wasn't 1776. It was 1789. It was April 30th. It was the day that the government began with the first president ever in office sworn in. It was Washington was sworn in as president, his inauguration, and it was really the beginning of America as we know it. That day he called for prayer, and people were praying for the nation, for America. And then Washington gets sworn in, and he gives this word. He actually gives this prophetic warning to America. It's right there embedded in the first day of our existence. And it's actually coming true now. And we can't go into detail with it right now, but it's a warning of what happens when a nation turns away from God, what's going to happen. So he gives this warning, and then he leads the first government on foot to a place to pray and to dedicate America to God. And remember, this is the first day of America, and it's dedicating the future to God. And so here is where they did it. So if we can find the place where they did it, we'll find the consecration ground of America on the very first day, and we're going to find a mystery, and that links to this biblical mystery. And so where did it happen? Well, it happened in the nation's capital, but it wasn't Washington. There was no Washington, D.C., and it wasn't Philadelphia. The first capital of America was New York City, and it was Lower Manhattan. And specifically, where did they go to pray? It was on a ground. They went in this little stone chapel on this ground. Where was it specifically? They went to pray, and they dedicated America to God. On its first day, America was dedicated to God at the corner of Ground Zero. The consecration ground of America is Ground Zero. In fact, Ground Zero, the actual place where it all happened, was actually part of that church land. And so the ancient principle, the ancient mystery, the mystery of judgment, that the calamity returns to the place where the nation was consecrated to God. It all happened, and that's the mystery behind it. And that's the ground where actually the sycamore, the harbingers in the book, and the harbingers we spoke about, were there. But the sycamore was struck down on America's consecration ground. It all happened there. And when that happened, that day of 9/11, a shockwave goes forth from Ground Zero, the consecration ground, and it goes forth and it strikes another place. It strikes Federal Hall, which is the place where Washington was sworn in and gave the warning about what was going to happen. And so It goes there, and you guys said before, you spoke about just before that the economy, it's like the foundation is cracked. Well, what happens is this is the foundation of America, and what happens is the shockwave cracks the foundation of it. It cracks the foundation of America on 9/11. And around Ground Zero, all the buildings of Ground Zero are destroyed or totally devastated, except one. One is protected. That became the news story. It was called the Miracle of Ground Zero, or the Miracle of 9/11. And that ground was the ground where America was consecrated to God. The little stone chapel was the only place protected. And the reason why they say it was protected is because there was an object that absorbed the force of 9/11. And what the object was the harbinger. It was the sixth harbinger in the book. It's the sixth harbinger. It was the sycamore that saved the place, and it saved the whole thing. So here's the message: is that the harbingers and even the book itself, the harbinger, and the message of it is not to destroy America. It's to save America. It's to call America back. That's the whole point. And even for America to come back, to be drawn back to the very place where it was in prayer before God, if God is saying return, come back. And on that day when Solomon in Israel had dedicated the Temple Mount, he got a word after that, like a revelation, and God spoke to him and he said, listen, Solomon, if this nation turns away from me, if they keep going, they're going to be judged, they're going to be destroyed. But if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their evil ways, I'll hear from heaven, I'll forgive their sin, I'll heal their land. So here the message is, if my people. God is calling America to come back, to turn back to him. And he's calling everyone listening right now to turn back to him, even those who are his people, because we have to live it. We have to be the lights. We have to be shining. We have to do our job, or else we cannot expect revival for the nation if we're not doing our thing. So the key is if my people, and the key is if.
Boy, that's a fact. Tim, you got some questions, don't you?
Well, it's just an extremely fascinating topic, and it's too bad we've just got an hour tonight, so we're going to have you back and talk about it some more sometime, Jonathan. But, you mentioned, Israel and America being involved here, and obviously Israel's already had their own harbinger early on. But one couldn't actually say they've, been with God the whole time. They've kind of turned away from God also. So why not another harbinger for Israel as well as America? And then the other thing about that is it's just very interesting. In 9/11, those of us that have put in, 10 to 11 years worth of research on 9/11 realize that Israel and U.S. government officials were somehow involved here. So that's also another very interesting tie in there to the whole story.
Well, I'll talk about Israel, and that is, and I'm, you said at the beginning, you said Rabbi John Cahn, and I'm called Rabbi. I'm also a pastor. I'm, a Jewish believer in Jesus. And so when you look at most of Israel, today, and there are many Jewish people who are coming to believe in Jesus today, but that most of Israel has turned from God. I mean, this happened years ago, and missing the Messiah. And so for 2,000 years, they've been wandering the earth, and they have been, they've gone through everything. So as far as harbingers, they've gone through everything. I mean, every kind of harbinger, and it's not finished. What Jesus said back then, he said, listen, he said, your peace is hidden from you, and you're not going to have peace until you come back to me. So Israel also needs to turn back, and that's absolutely. I mean, the whole thing we're talking about with America is linked to Israel, and it's interesting because we said at the beginning, maybe we can get about the foundation. America was actually founded to be a new Israel. I mean, anyone who knows the founding of America, I'm talking about the Puritans. So it's like eerie and amazing that we're following the pattern, and in blessing, and now in turning away from God. And so, we know also, we were talking before, that end-time prophecy in the Bible, America's not mentioned. So that means that somehow it's got to fall from being the head of nations. And the harbinger is really kind of it's kind of filling in the key between end-time prophecy, what people know about what's going to come from the Bible, and where we are right now. And so it's really given the path. And if you ask me, does it look like it's going to happen? No, it doesn't look like it, but anything's possible. But, you ask, what about the leaders? Well, yeah, the leaders are important. I mean, the way that leaders affect the nation, so you're absolutely right. But still, revival can still happen among the people. Israel had evil kings, but there were still righteous people, and that's what we have to be.
Right. So I guess the question that I have then is, knowing that our non-representing representatives and our how corrupt things have become, what is the recourse for people? I mean, because these politicians are what drive the actions of this country, and because the country has kind of collectively turned away from God, there's a lot of lethargy and a lot of silence and a lot of willful ignorance. So how do you fix that, or do you see it happening, or do you see the United States just crumbling?
Well, it doesn't look like America's turning back. I mean, and it's not only the leaders. It's also the leaders of culture as well as leaders of politics. It's Hollywood, it's Washington, it's all that. But so you're right. It doesn't look like it's happening, but we got to work with where it is happening, and that's where God says it's. Jesus said, "You're the light of the world." We have to be the lights, and we have to speak truth, and we have to be shining the truth in darkness and the light in darkness, and there can be revival. People say it's going to be judgment or revival. There can be both. There can be judgment and revival, and that's the thing. We can't force somebody else to do something. I mean, you can try to vote them out. That's right, but we have to be part of the answer. One of the reasons why I think The Harbinger became a bestseller like right away is because people were getting it in bulk, and they were giving it to their loved ones and giving it to everybody and trying to spread the word to say, listen, we got to wake up. So nobody can stop us from being part of the answer.
Well, thank you for coming on the broadcast tonight, Jonathan. Jonathan Cahn, his book, The Harbinger, The Ancient Mystery That Holds the Secret of America's Future. Fantastic appearance tonight, Jonathan, and we hope to have you back again real soon.
Well, thank you, guys. A real blessing to speak to you.
Thank you,
absolutely. Folks, hour number 1 is done. Hour number 2 is on the way, so sit tight and stay tuned. You're listening to Freedomlink Radio on the Orion Talk Radio Network and
violated the whole concept of our revolution and our Constitution.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Freedomlink Radio, folks. Joe Joseph and Tim Watts. Last hour, our guest was Jonathan Cahn, author of the book The Harbinger. And boy, Tim, I mean, that was interesting to see all the parallels between ancient Israel and the United States, isn't it?
Well, he certainly put a lot of work into that, and
yeah.
I guess, so the book is The Harbinger, and it's a New York Times bestseller, did you say?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's incredible. So doing well. You can find it on Amazon, folks, if you want to check it out. And there's also a lot of videos where you can see Jonathan on YouTube. To me, that we didn't have enough time because I wanted to talk to him about, the scumbags we've got on on Capitol Hill that don't follow God like, the rest of society. I mean, godless, for lack of a better term, or actually, I suppose I should just say Luciferian. These people, they worship Satan, and we actually, unfortunately, have people like that in this world. And sadly enough, a great many of them exist on Capitol Hill. So I really wanted to explore that with him. It's too bad we didn't have another hour, because a lot of 9/11, he says, yeah, it was allowed to happen by God, but we also know from looking into this that a lot of this was created by these godless bastards on Capitol Hill. And strangely enough, also with some involvement from Israel. So the two countries that are supposedly going through this, or Israel's already gone through this Harbinger, and now he says America is going through it now. It's just, I don't know, it's just very interesting that...
yeah, it is, because the United States is like, I think we said it last hour, the United States, not only was it founded upon... I think the founding documents that they used was the Bible, the Magna Carta, and the Iroquois Confederacy. They used their Constitution as the 3 documents that made, or they used to tailor the existing Constitution with. But on the flip side, there's a whole other side of occultism that takes place. I mean, look at, like you said, look at Washington, D.C., and all the occult symbology there, not to mention the fact that, all the major buildings there turn out, if you follow it all out, it makes a big pentagram and everything else. I mean, that there's nothing to dispute there, and there most certainly is. But what that does, Tim, to me, is it speaks to the forces that are actually at work here. You know what I mean? That people need to understand that there are more, that life is more than just human beings spawning from a puddle of ooze millions of years ago. That there is more to existence than what we see with our eyes. You know what I mean? And that's the big thing that I want people to understand, is the power behind all of this stuff, whether it be good or evil. And what drives these politicians and these elitists to do what they do. I mean, it's crazy. And you're right. I believe firmly that 9/11 was a gigantic occult ritual. I don't.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that's at least by the way it appears. That's they're obsessed with symbology.
Yeah, Popeye had a good show with Mark Passio where they went into the numerology and the occult symbolism that, around 9/11. That was a very good show. And there was a lot of that was involved that day and in other, disasters that happen around this country. Because again, we have this, I don't know if I want to call him human, Joe, but there's another form of being on this earth that walks in different shoes than we do. I mean, they don't think with a religious mindset. I mean, it's Luciferian. They're looking at the dark side of things.
But they do look at things from a religious mindset. It's only dark. It's the darker evil religious, but it's still religious in and of itself. I'm not a proponent of organized religion.
No,
just because of the fact of what it does. It kind of puts you in a box, if you will. You know what I mean? You box yourself in when you say, well, I'm Baptist, well, I'm Mormon, well, I'm Jew, well, I'm this, well, I'm that. No, that's the thing is that one of the biggest misconceptions that I find, especially in the Bible, and the Roman Catholics are huge on this, is, Jesus said to Peter, upon this rock build my church. And people take that literally to mean that, oh, okay, yeah, well, upon this rock, well, we're going to build your church right here. No, he meant upon me. Upon me build my church. I'm the rock. I'm solid. You can depend on me, baby. And that's what he means by that. But it's all misconstrued. And that's the thing is that upon this rock build my church. Well, this church must be this standing structure. No, that's not what he meant at all. And that's what has been bastardized into a lot of what's organized religion today. It's just it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. And it's also very frustrating to see how evil has really gained such a foothold in this country, and so fast, Tim. I mean, so fast. Just, I think it would be good if we kind of went over the progression just since 9/11, just to really slam it home of just how fast things have accelerated and what we mean by the evil that and the way that they're doing this, I mean, it's systematic for sure. And just over the last 6 months, we've seen it they've gone into overdrive.
Yeah.
Trying to get, and my thing is what's the rush? You guys have waited this long to execute your grand plan. Why all of a sudden is there such a mad dash to the finish line?
Yeah, there's something about 2012 that they're really worried about. I mean, at first blush, that's what it seems like. I mean, these guys seem like they're just scared out of their freaking pants, of something in 2012. And it's a great observation, Joe. And I've talked to other people about this. We all have the same feeling that they're rushing. Otherwise they wouldn't be, possibly leaving us so many breadcrumbs to follow. I mean, they're getting sloppy. But one thing's for certain, they are rushing. Everything is at an accelerated pace right now. And it's just incredible.
Right. And Keb in the chat room just said religion just separates people into groups. I couldn't agree with you more that there are certain aspects. Yeah, organized religion is a classic divide and conquer tactic.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah. Go ahead.
That's just the way it is. It's just one of many, but it most certainly does. It most certainly does. And I'll tell you what, a lot of the organized religion out there are based on just complete and utter fabrications of people, like, for example, the rapture.
Not even in the Bible.
Not even in the Bible.
Nope.
If you trace the history of the rapture back, it's some idea, some monk sitting in a room trying to figure stuff out. Okay. So that's good. And then you look at other things like the Sabbath day. Most of these Christian churches celebrate the quote Sabbath on the Sunday. Well, who changed the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday?
to a pagan day.
It was the Catholic Church, because they says, you know what?
Yep.
We wants to get some of these pagans in with us. So we just go ahead and move the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday. Do you know that Saturday, the Sabbath day, was the only day out of all 7 days that God sanctified, that God made holy?
Yep.
That was the only one. That was the only one. And that's the thing that people don't understand when they say, well, every day's a Sabbath day, because that's the way I feel. And that's not true. God sanctified the Sabbath, the seventh day, which is Saturday. It's not in dispute.
Free vacation. Yeah.
That's it. That's the only day he made holy. So there's got to be a reason why. Folks, don't go away. We're just getting started here with hour number 2. We'll be back in 3 minutes. You're listening to Freedom Link Radio on the Orion Talk Radio Network. We'll be right back. Folks, don't forget to check out Down the Rabbit Hole with Popeye every Wednesday and Friday from 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. and again on Sunday from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time here on the Orion Talk Radio Network. Popeye, of course, from federaljack.com, a great news source. Tim Watts and Joe Joseph here. And, boy, Tim, I mean, this is I'm going to be looking at this. It's like you say, we'll be looking at this for a while.
Yeah, trying to digest what, Rabbi Cahn just told us, from his book, The Harbinger, because again, here was the dichotomy. He put all this work into this, which was very interesting, and it seems to be very thoroughly researched. But, on the other side, there's Joe and I and Popeye and folks like us who have looked into 9/11 as much, and that background he didn't know about. We talked between the breaks off air, and actually some of the most interesting discussions were off air. But so he's not privy to that. He's giving us this, and we're trying to tell him how, the people in the United States and in Israel were actually behind this. So it's interesting. They're bringing their own demise down upon themselves. Or my question, Joe, is, are they just using it? Are they trying to make it look like something like this? Because these people, they have all the ancient secrets from all time. I mean, they've got the secrets from the Lost Library of Alexandria, all this stuff under the left foot of the Sphinx, of the left paw of the Sphinx, all of these ancient, text, wisdom, knowledge, the powers that be have at their possession. So I often wonder, and they're so steeped in the occult, if maybe they're not trying to orchestrate this on their own, thinking they can do something in the occult world, so it's just really hard to digest this whole thing.
I know it is. I know, man. The one thing that, Ange and I talk about a lot is where we stand now, the United States, and what we're seeing and how you equate it with where we stand. Let's just say end times prophecy, for example. I mean, now you can tell based on what's been going on in the rapid progression that it looks as though God has removed his protective hand from the United States. I mean, look at what's happening to us, and in a very, very short period of time. And I think a good thing to do is to go over just the stuff that's happened since November, because it's very telling as to the condition of our country and the evil that actually runs it. So that's number one. But number two, I firmly believe that God has given us one last chance, and that's Ron Paul to turn things around. He's it. If Ron Paul doesn't get in, I firmly believe that we're crashing and burning. Hands down, the United States is going down the tubes real fast. Matter of fact, there was a hearing here recently this week in the Senate where Tim Geithner was pressed on, and the question went, if we only could raise the debt ceiling one more time, how much money would the United States need to raise the debt ceiling in order to pay all its debts in, say, like the next 10 years? And Tim Geithner came back and said, "You don't want me to say that. It would scare you." That was his answer. It would scare you. I mean, really? I mean, they even know and just admitted that, we're pretty much looting the country. We're looting everything you've got, and that's it. Mm. Yeah. And what are you guys going to do about it? Nothing. You'll just keep on raising the debt ceiling like you are, because you're good little boys. You're good. As long as we keep giving you that cushy, nice little office and all these little perks, and these special interest groups keep giving you everything that you need and everything you want and desire, no problem. No problem. Just keep raising that debt ceiling for us. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I mean, really, that's it. So I truly believe, Ron Paul doesn't get in. This is it. This is the road to the last trains to Nowheresville, if you know what I mean.
But yeah, I don't think it's going to get any prettier.
Yeah, I mean, just to showcase it. Now, you wrote a great article on News Focus on the police state, and in this article, it goes over just almost like a timeline of what we've seen, and I want to go over that because it's really chilling when you kind of lay it all out. November 9th. And I'm gonna read this right off your website. The government conducted its first ever nationwide test of the emergency alert system. Essentially the same as the emergency broadcast system, many questioned the impetus of a nationwide alert test at the time because we went through the entire Cold War era without ever having a coast-to-coast test, plus another 10 years after 9/11. So why all of a sudden do they need to have a test in November? Seems kind of odd to go a decade after 9/11 before ever considering something like this. And that's true, Tim.
Yeah.
I mean, why did they switch? Why was there such a need to switch everybody over to the new digital television system?
Yeah.
It's that same type of thought. I mean, we've had the capability for years, but we've never needed it. And as far as I can tell, we never needed it then.
There's a rumor floating out there that what they did on November 9th was upload Trojans into the communication satellites of the United States. So that makes for something very interesting, at a later date. So, I don't know. You go the whole Cold War without a national test. You go, 10 years after 9/11, the worst attack on American soil, without a test. And then on the 11th year, you're like, oh, hey, guess what? We should have this national emergency alert test. So, yeah, that's why I use that date, to start with, Joe. But you can see after that, everything progresses at like a 10-day or 2-week interval.
Yeah.
To where there's something
very true.
Come.
Very true. November 18th, FEMA publishes a continuity of government plan. And that's the thing that that I went over is this COG. Why? I mean, again,
Let's not be modest now. This is the document that Joe and Angie uncovered, and fantastic work on their part, and that immediately got yanked down from the internet once Joe and Angie found it.
Now, I'm all for having contingency plans, but the language in this COG is definitely scary. And I mean, they're acknowledging the existence of secret, deep underground military bases and outfitting them. And, this is the 72-hour hot standby to go live on FEMA camps. Mm. The whole nine. I mean, it was a very telling document. And all it was a request for quote. It was a bid. That's what that was. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing that people need to understand is if you just take the time to research and get into this stuff, you'll find out that 99% of the stuff that's out there that you need to know is open source. It's all open source. So you just got to go know where to find it. And once you find it, I mean, it's a gold mine of information.
What's funny about that is when you guys found that, they're trying to, it was their argument was so asinine. It was like nothing to see here, but yet at the same time, they yanked that thing down off the internet as fast as they could with an admonishment to any other government agencies that would ever publish stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure that somebody got their pee-pee slapped over that one. I'm just telling you right now, that was probably bad news for somebody. So it's again, one of those things that just show that what are they planning for? What is the rush, and why Why the expediency? Why the sense of urgency? It's very, very interesting, folks. But anyway, we're up against a hard break, so we'll go to break. We'll be back in 3 minutes, and we'll go over the timeline. We'll continue this timeline because when you lay it all out, it really shows that they have accelerated this thing. I mean, they are going ludicrous speed. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Folks, don't forget to check out Jimmy X here on the Orion Talk Radio Network on Sundays, 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern.
He's a madman.
Oh, he's a madman. He's a lunatic. The guy is off his rocker, but boy, does he do great radio. Kind of sounds like us, doesn't it? Let me just toot our horn a little bit. Beep, beep, beep. There you go. So anyway, we're talking about the accelerated pace that this thing's going on, right? And we just went over the continuity of government plan, and I want to keep kind of moving right along. November 28th, the Senate passes the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, for fiscal year 2012. Now, mind you, folks, the National Defense Authorization Act is nothing new. It happens every year. But the 2012 NDAA, S-1867, is the bill that gives the president unprecedented power to detain American citizens without due process indefinitely, which is, I mean, you want to talk about some shady crap, man. That S-1867 and H.R. 1540, that was awful, absolutely awful stuff.
Yep. And
I mean,
Joe's,
really.
It's a procurement plan. It's a military a spending plan. You know, they have it every year. But this particular year, they decided to amend it. You know, one day
because it's riders. That's what they do, dude. They put riders on it.
And
but
you know, a lot of people just don't even know about it yet to this day, Joe. You know, I'm amazed at how many people I can walk up to and say, you know, what do you know about NDAA? And they go, what the hell is that? And they go, well, you better know. You know, and the same with, you know, H.R. 658 and any of the other things that we're about to talk about. Just they don't know. The media failed us miserably on all of these things.
Right. So that happens on November 28th. That was 10 days after the COG was put out. And then on December 8th, about 2 weeks after that, the White House releases its strategic implementation plan to address ideologically inspired violent extremism in the homeland. I mean, just listen to that for a second. Ideologically inspired violent extremism in the homeland.
That's a mouthful.
Oh, but I mean, the homeland. Let's just talk. Does that not reek of Nazism? Of like,
oh God, I hate that term.
I mean,
just
seriously,
hate that term.
Das Vaterland, yeah. You know, that's what I think of. It's just, Yep. I mean, they really had to go out of their way to, I mean, it's like they did research into Nazi lore. I swear. I mean, but when you look back on it, Operation Paperclip, these are the same people that did that stuff in World War II. They're here again, just different faces, but the same type of people. I mean, this has been passed down for a while now.
Oh, yeah, the same ideology is continuing on from Nazi Germany.
Yeah, so basically what happened was World War II was a bad Scooby-Doo episode where, you know, so they get the villain, you know, oh, and I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you snooping kids. And so here we go again, you know, that freaking that villain has gotten out, and now it's just like, well, I'm just going to go take over the United States and Israel, and we're going to go rain hell, holy hell, all over the globe. So I mean, that's what we have here, and the NDAA and the SIP. The SIP is really scary, folks. I mean, if you take the time to read it, it's scary stuff because it directly targets people like you and me. I mean, you don't have to be somebody that does a broadcast to get targeted. Hell, you could be in a chat room and just say something the wrong way, you know? And that's it. And the other thing is, it's a soft federal takeover of local law enforcement. They're basically taking law enforcement on the local level and just attaching it to the hip of the federal government. And so you ask, well, how do they get away with that? How do they get away with that? See, they get these municipalities by the cojones a certain way, and I'll tell you how. Funding, whether it be the 1033 program or Homeland Security funding, whatever it is, that federal funding, man, it's like a drug. It's like a drug, and we all pay for it. You know? We all pay for it. But it all comes from the federal government. And so they say, well, look, if you don't play nice with us, why, we're just going to take your funding away.
But take your money.
We're just going to take your money. And a lot of these municipalities now, because they're so strapped, they say, oh, no, you can't do that. No. Oh. I'll tell you what, Tim. Ange has been talking to me, and we've been talking about it too, because my sheriff sucks. He's the same guy that says, I don't care about the Constitution. I care about the laws of the state of North Carolina.
Holy cow.
Yeah. When I asked him about the roadblock I had to go through because he was checking my registration, and I was like, hey, man, how about that Fourth Amendment? How's that working out for us? Apparently not pretty good. You know? I went down to the courthouse, and I confronted him on it. And I said, didn't you take an oath? Man, I don't care about the Constitution. I care about the laws of the state of North Carolina. Because he says, I feel like I'm talking to a wall right now. Yeah, because you are, man.
Thanks for coming, sir.
That's right. But it goes like this, you know. Say I run against him and I become sheriff. The first thing I do is I stop any federal money. If the state money makes me have to do these drunk checkpoints or these roadblocks or anything else, then I send the state money back. And we live within our means. That means if it's me and 2 deputies that are on the payroll and I have a freaking posse that I call up in a time of need or whatever, then so be it. But I'll tell you what, just like a volunteer fire department, there's ways to have peace officers. And I say peace officers because I'm not a big proponent of law enforcement. Matter of fact, I can't freaking stand it. I am Mr. Anti-Law Enforcement because it goes against the grain of the Constitution and it violates your rights. You know, so my thing would be you have the sheriff, you got a couple of deputies, and then the rest of the people volunteer. And I'll bet you there'll be people knocking down my door to volunteer.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that are pretty disgusted at the way things are going now. You know, and that's a good point about the police officers and peace officers, because I do remember there was a day when it was peace officers. And actually, I remember a day when they went from black and whites and they wanted to get away from that harsh look, and everybody started to go to the friendly paint colors on the police cars and to protect and to serve, you know, and all these other things. And now after 9/11, you notice how every community, you know, the government has mandated, you know, hey, we want to see those in black and white now. Everything back to black and white. Forget the peace officer. Now it's just a police state.
Yeah, well, yeah, now it's a police state. But, I mean, I truly believe the way to combat the police state starts at home, starts at your local level, at your municipality. And that means if you run for sheriff or if you go to become like a city councilman or a town councilman or whatever it is, get into these positions at the local level and then tell the feds and the state governments to go pack sand, man. Don't take the money, because when you take the money, it comes with a bunch of baggage. You know, live within your means and don't encumber the locality with a bunch of property tax and other crap that's totally unconstitutional. There's ways to go about this. But certainly not the way they're going about it right now. I mean, what the hell do these cities need tanks for?
Yeah.
And you're paying for it.
Yeah, and Joe's talking about the 1033 program, and if you don't know about it, we've talked about it a few times here, but it started after 9/11, and the whole idea behind the 1033 program was to provide our law enforcement with everything that the military has. And I am not exaggerating about that, not in the least. I mean, they've got Kevlar helmets, you know, bodysuits, they've got M16s, they've got assault rifles, they've got tanks, as Joe said, armored personnel carriers with turrets on top, all armored. You know, they've got drones they're allowed to fly over the top of it. I mean, grenade launchers, you name it. I mean, it is everything the military has.
No, absolutely.
Maybe Agent Orange.
Good old Agent. No, they just use that to keep the weeds off our crops now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what Agent Orange is used for. It's no longer a defoliant for wartime. Now they just use it to kill weeds in our crops. That's great, folks. So when your kids start sprouting 3 heads, you'll know why. Final segment of the show coming up, folks. We're not even halfway done with this list yet. So we'll try and speed on through it in the last segment. Don't go away. You're listening to Freedomlink Radio on the Orion Talk Radio Network. Folks, don't forget to tune in to my good buddy Ken on the Information Nation every Sunday from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Daylight Time, that is. I keep messing up that. That daylight savings thing is a nightmare to me, man. I know you like it.
Nice
but
nightmare. It's my favorite nightmare.
I'm not a big fan of it. I'm going to put the link to this article that Tim wrote in the chat room so you guys have it to peruse at your leisure. But it's very, very, very informative.
Well, it's also a 3-part article, too. So parts 1 and 2 you'll find at the bottom, just as you get to the bottom of the story, because this is 3 parts. When I started on NDAA, Joe, I thought it was, a couple of weeks here. I'll put in a little research. Geez, I put like a couple of months into this. And I only thought it was going to be a 1-part story, but it just kept writing itself. There was more and more and more. So this is a 3-part series.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, what a fantastic article. But I want to get back to it. So we went over the NDAA, and then on December 16th, 8 days later, the House reconciled the NDAA and sent it to President Obama's desk to sign. And as we know, it eventually became law. And one of the interesting things about this, and they did it too with this latest executive order, the NDRP, National Defense Resources Preparedness Executive Order. But the argument that I've heard in the mainstream media, a lot of talking heads, and then the people that come out and say, Joe, Ange, you're just making a big deal out of nothing. It's a big hullabaloo out of nothing. He would never do anything to usurp that, or to abuse that power. No, never once. He'd never do it. Well, my thing is, why would you do it if you don't need it?
Exactly.
That would be number one. And then number two, when Intel Hub posted this on their YouTube channel and consequently went viral. Of course, when anything goes viral, you end up getting your share of trolls and your share of naysayers, And remember that, again, and Ange just reminded me, this is coming from the same president that says it's okay to assassinate American citizens. But if we followed the rule of law, remember, we don't follow the rule of law anymore. We follow the rule of men. It's not the rule of law. It's whatever the special interests want. It's whatever the elitists want. The law doesn't apply to them. The law only applies to you when it's convenient to them. And that's really how it works. But my thing is if we followed the Constitution the way that we were supposed to from day one, we wouldn't be in any wars illegally, going overseas and nation building and raping and pillaging. And consequently, we wouldn't need executive orders like the National Defense Resources Preparedness because we wouldn't be all over the place pissing people off. It wouldn't be even necessary to even think about. And the same thing goes for the NDAA.
There's a good question, too, Joe. It's like, is this the first time they ever came up with one of these plans? I mean, this is what you got to ask yourself, folks. I mean, they've obviously had plans in place before, so why did they change now?
Well, they did. Again, the first executive order that had similar language to this came out in 1950. It was Harry S. Truman, and it was the one that put us into a state of national emergency, if you will.
In a similar
way. It had to do with the Cold War and the threat of nuclear holocaust.
Yeah. And then we had one during Clinton, correct?
Right. 1994, we had the executive order where Clinton pretty much mirrored it, but he altered the wording just a little bit. And the same thing goes with this NDRP. You know, everybody says, and all these blogs and the mainstream media says, oh, no, this is just procedural. This is just what they do. It's just an update. And look at it. If we put them side by side, they're practically identical. But practically identical. But they're not identical. And the fact is, in a document, all you got to do is change. You got to change a few words, and it changes the whole scope of the document. And in this particular one, the major thing was it applies to peacetime. You know?
That's the kicker there to me, the word peacetime. And that's the one that you just can't get past. Why was that in there?
Right. Well, and because we haven't declared war on anybody. We just go and police the world. So are we at peace? Is this peacetime? Nobody's had a declaration of war since 1941. Yeah. We haven't declared war since 1941.
And with the NDAA, they just declared the United States a battlefield.
A battlefield. But we're not at war. But we are at war. But we're not. But we are. Holy crap, man. I mean, this is crazy stuff. It's like, kind of schizo, man. It's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You just never know what you're going to get. Only lately, I think it's been a lot of Mr. Hyde, man. It's been like Mr. Hyde to the bone. And that's the way I kind of feel. So anyway, going back to this, so we have the NDAA gets signed, and then March 13th, FEMA Corps announced regarding disaster preparedness, which ties FEMA to the CNCS. Tim, I mean, FEMA Corps, really?
Yeah, and that's like what indoctrinating the youth now. They want to get them involved in FEMA Corps. It's, I don't know, I feel like I'm just in one of these bad dreams. You want to pinch yourself and say, oh, my gosh, Annie M., you were there and you were there too. And, it's just, you can't make this crap up.
Right. And then look at the preparation prior to this, right? Mm-hmm. You got the Military Commissions Act. You got the Patriot Act.
Yeah.
Those are two big whammies,
Homegrown Terrorism Act.
Right. The Homegrown Terrorism Act. And so many other riders to other bills out there. And then look at the physical. So that's the legislative preparation. Look at the physical preparation. Deep underground military bases being built and outfitted at breakneck speed, seed vaults, FEMA camps, and then Obamacare. I mean, unbelievable usurping of power. And I mean, what Obamacare does more than anything else, I mean, you could say socialized medicine, all that. It eliminates your health care privacy. It puts your records out in the open, and it also gives everybody access to your genomic data, which is something that was just debated at the Bioethics Committee, the Presidential Committee on Bioethical Issues. And I'm like, oh, pip, pip, cheerio. That's such a grand idea about that. And I think Angie's going to be writing another article on that too this weekend to kind of go over that. So it should be interesting. Now, all I can say is this. Do we see that there is a lot of stuff coming together all at one time? Absolutely. But Tim, is it just coincidence?
No, and did you did I just miss it? You mentioned NDRP on March 17th, right? So what do you got? You've got 6 major things that have happened in 5 months, folks. I mean, 6 major things, and when you look at the gist of what they're all about, it's usually about containing we the people. And here's another very important thing to think about. Think about the time that we're in right now, the economic calamity that we face. The world is, got 3 fingers out of the water and going under right now. And this is what our government and our politicians have deemed that they want to spend their time on. Do you know how much man hours, how much paperwork, all of these things required? The SIP, the NDAA, the HR 658, putting the drones in the air, getting FEMA Corps together. I mean, every one of these things took an incredible amount of effort. And this is where they're focused right now, rather than trying to alleviate or ameliorate whatever the economic disaster that we're under. They seem, to be preparing for the opposite end when everything goes tits up.
It's going to go tits up. That there is no mistake in that. I mean, unless there's some sort of divine intervention or miracle that takes place, we're on the last train to Nowheresville, folks. I mean, that's just the way it is. And it's hard to see it any other way, just for nothing more than the fact that the American public is just so damn lethargic, bro.
Well, we're on that track right now, but I'm never gonna give in and say that that we can't derail this train yet.
Oh no, me neither. But I'm just saying, as each day progresses, as each day goes by, the window of opportunity gets smaller and smaller, and pretty soon they're going to have such a network, such a police state in place that it's going to be very hard to dig ourselves out of the hole we're in.
Yeah, and they've created so many different pieces of legislation, so many different acts and executive orders. I mean, there's a lot to tear apart. Again, it's not just Hitler's Enabling Act. They hid this in a lot of different legislative pieces. You've really got to go in and do your homework and to pull this whole thing apart and get the Constitution back that our forefathers gave us.
That's right. Thank you for tuning in tonight, folks. It's been a fantastic evening. Our next broadcast is Sunday evening from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern. So I hope to see you all back here at Orion Talk Radio. Until then, I hope you guys have a good weekend. For all that's having some decent weather out there, get out there and get the gardens planted.